Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My abstract concept for tonight is poverty. And I hope in the next 8 minutes, I'm not only going to explain you what is poverty, but I hope I'll change your perception of poverty and try to give you another view of this concept. When you think about poverty, what do you think about? Anyone? What do you think about poverty? Yes.
Rusty growing up in Arkansas.
Yes. Right. That's bad to laugh at it. Yes, Jim.
Can we add Bob and Bronze to that?
Maybe, I'm not sure, I'm not aware of their childhood, but yeah.
You when you didn't have a home and had to live with crows.
Yes, that was very close, but
People in Ethiopia?
yes, true. We always think about some situation when people don't have money, and that's what usually pops in our minds. Let me give you a story. This September, I went traveling to Thailand and Cambodia, and me and two friends of mine volunteered to work in a small school, 5 kilometers out of Siem Reap. We came over there on a Saturday morning, and we entered into this small, tiny building, which was obviously not enough for all the kids who wanted to study in the school, because it was one and only school that didn't charge kids for education. They could just come over there and study English. And there were lots of them. You wouldn't imagine how many were those kids. There were a couple of volunteer teachers and not enough finances to build a new school, so they would have just desks outside of the building, just in the yard, and the teacher would stand there in the yard and teach without any materials, without any books. So there we were, me and two friends of mine, and we were spending the day with the kids, trying to teach them something, but again, there was a whiteboard, but there were no markers, there were no textbooks, there was nothing. We had a map, so we talked a little bit about the map, but after that there was not that much to do. And we went into the yard and we sat on the ground, we took a stick, and we started writing the letters on the ground. And the kids were reading them, and then we were drawing pictures, and we were discussing what we saw on those pictures, and it was very simple and nice. The kids' level was very basic, so it was okay. When one kid came, there was a girl. Her name was Mary, and I asked why her name was Mary, because it's obviously not a Cambodian name, and she said, because my favorite teacher's name was Mary. My favorite teacher was a volunteer teacher in church in Siem Reap. And I would go there every Sunday, 5 kilometers by foot to Siem Reap, just to study English. And then going back. And now, when the school opened, she was really glad that she can attend the school in her own village and study English there. And what I saw in that school, what I saw in that kid, was poverty. It wasn't that they didn't have food. Well, they couldn't go for a steak every time they would love to. It wasn't that they didn't have clothes. Yeah, right, they didn't have Dolce & Gabbana, but still. But when this kid told me that she wants to be a doctor, and the person who was running the school laughed at her and told her that she should stop dreaming and start thinking about the real life, I realized that that's poverty. That's when the kid cannot get an education just because he has to go to the field and work. Well, poverty, as the dictionary told me, is a lack of basic human needs: water, nutrition, health care, shelter, education. If you talk about basic human needs, obviously water, nutrition, shelter, health care would qualify as the basic human needs. Education, more or less. Why poverty is so important? Why would we talk about poverty? Because every hour there is 4,000 to 6,000 people dying from hunger in the world. 75% of them are kids. These are the basic needs, right? Everyone will tell you this is the basic need. Those kids, those people are dying out there. So that's what NGOs do. They bring the money and they give them in the form of food or in the form of just financial help to these poor villages, to these people that are in need. Well, it keeps on and on and on. And there's many of them, those NGOs. Only World Food Organization has 3,000 NGOs working on the charities. And they all gather those money and send them to the people in need, and still the situation is not getting improved. And I call it to do Robin Hood. When you take from the rich and you give it to the poor. And it goes, and people consume it, they buy food, and they eat it. And tomorrow they need food again, and the NGO comes and gives them food, and they eat it, and tomorrow they need food again. And it keeps on and on and on. Let me tell you another story. There was a girl, and when her brother was born, because her parents were living in such a small, tiny room, they sent her to live with her grandparents. Well, parents had a bigger place, but it was in a small, tiny town. And they didn't have that much food, so what they would do, they would grow vegetables and potatoes. And if they didn't have enough food, they would go to the forest to gather berries and mushrooms. And when the girl would ask her grandfather, "Are we poor?" Grandfather would say, "No, you're not poor. We are like Robinson Crusoe. We are on this island, and we need is our knowledge to build our life. We'll go in the woods and we'll hunt the food and we'll bring it home. And then the game will be over and everything will be fine." The grandfather couldn't give the girl a lot of money just because he didn't have it. So what he did, he gave her the knowledge. It was my grandfather. He taught me English. And that's how it all started. That's how I got into college. And that's how I came here to Korea. And sitting there in this yard and drawing pictures as little kids, I was thinking, where would I be if not for the education that I got? Would I be also working in the field? Or would I be working in the plant maybe? Or would I be serving food somewhere? Which is great when people give you something. It's great when people help you. But isn't it so much better if you can actually do it by yourself? I would love an NGO come here today and give me the money. I would totally take it. But I'm grateful for the fact that I can earn my own money. This Christmas, the friends with whom I volunteered for this teaching are getting our money together and buying the textbooks for the school. And I think if you do feel that poverty is a very important issue, if you do think that these 4,000 to 6,000 people dying every hour should not die, I think that you might go and volunteer for teaching, or buy a book to a child, or just talk to a random person who wants to get a better grade for his test. Because this is education, this is a knowledge, this is a key to fight poverty.